And we have Ambassador Veena Sikri, retired senior diplomat who served as India's High Commissioner to Bangladesh. Ma'am, thank you for being with us. Now, the economy in Bangladesh is struggling. Power supply was cut off for non-payment of dues. Politically, people want democratic elections, but the government, as we see, is being expanded. When do you think Bangladesh is going to be ready for elections?
Well, Bangladesh is in a very difficult position right now. In fact, elections, the interim government, such as it is, because the present constitution doesn't have the provision for an interim government. The earlier constitution had it, it was removed by the High Court itself. So now there is a hearing going on to restore that provision. Such as it is, the interim government's sole role is to organize free and fair and inclusive elections, and they should be doing this within 90 days. But on the other hand, there's a complete chaos and anarchy within Bangladesh. You have protests going on. There are huge attacks on the minority community. There were attacks on the Buddhist community in Khagrachari. There were attacks just 2 days ago in Chittagong on the Hindu minority community. And in fact, it is very disturbing that even members of the army have been taking part in these attacks, not only in Khagrachari but also in Chittagong. And now, today, as of now, the news is that when the Awami League had organized a memorial parade today to remember one of their martyrs who had died during the anti-Irshad movement, there was a lot of chaos on that, and the protest could not take place. So there is a huge attempt to describe the Awami League as a fascist organization. Although from the side of former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, since she has not actually tendered her resignation, she has actually addressed a letter of congratulations to President-elect Donald Trump as the Prime Minister of Bangladesh. So there is a lot of uncertainty, a lot of chaos, and as you rightly mentioned, the economy has gone into free fall. In fact, the factory workers, the ready-made garment factory workers, are also on protest. They've been on protest for several days and weeks now, and they want their salaries to be increased. As a result, many factories are closed, orders are being cancelled, and economic growth is said to have halved from its previous healthy rate of 6 to 7%
right.
a year.
Ambassador Sikri, you have mentioned clearly the situation is quite grim. But is it right for the Awami League, in your opinion, to believe that the President-elect Trump can restore them to power in Bangladesh?
Oh, well, I think restoration of power, certainly, I think will have to be through an election. But I think the question is now about the inclusivity of Awami League in the day-to-day life, in the political life, socio-economic life of Bangladesh. At the moment, the Awami League is being described as a fascist organization, and you've seen the kind of parodies, the kind of images that are being perpetuated about the Awami League. And I think this is the problem that is there, because the Awami League does have a very large support base. And that support base, as can be seen, is already trying to assert itself. And at the same time, because of the economic downturn, because of the inflation, because of the uncertainty of power supply, as you correctly mentioned about the Adani Group, and there are other power units also where the coal has to be imported from Australia and other places. And unless the foreign exchange is paid for the coal to be imported, the power plant does not function. So in the face of all these, there is a lot of talk in Bangladesh that earlier it was better. Is something that has made the interim government a little nervous. And they are trying to counter that by then, describing the Awami League. So this whole question of inclusivity, of going back to normal political life, to normal socio-economic life, this has not happened. And on the other hand, let's
look at that question of inclusivity, Ambassador Sikri. Trump did mention the targeting of Hindus and other minorities in the current Bangladesh unrest, and he's also promised to share intelligence with India when he's president. What does this imply, and what sort of role do you think the US is going to play in Bangladesh?
Well, already, of course, there is a lot of talk about how the change of regime took place. You had said a student-inspired revolt, but actually the regime change operation is supposed to be guided by many countries, in the name of the USA and Pakistan are regularly mentioned, not only in India and also in USA itself. Now the question is that President Trump sent a very strong message addressed to the chaos in Bangladesh, addressing the attacks on the Hindus in Bangladesh, the minorities in Bangladesh, including the Christians and the Buddhists. And he said that these attacks were barbaric. Now, this was a matter of great enthusiasm for many of the people, especially the minorities and the Awami Leaguers who've been facing a lot of unrest and a lot of, attacks on them. And yesterday and day before, when the announcement about the election of President Donald Trump came through, a lot of the people in Bangladesh, from the Hindu community, Buddhist community, Awami Leaguers, they were celebrating, they were putting on posters. Now, this has all been stopped. They've been attacked, their posters have been torn, some of them have been arrested. So there is this chaos right now in Bangladesh. As I said, on every aspect, there is no kind of a normalcy in the life, but there's this kind of chaos and attacks on them going on from different parts. So this is what is creating the uncertainty among the minds of the people, the followers of the Awami League, minds of the Hindu minorities, minds of the Buddhist minorities. And at the same time, in the interim government and under their diktat, there is no media freedom. The media houses are all controlled. There is no press freedom. And in fact, even the university professors and teachers of the schools have been forced to resign. So in this face of this extreme uncertainty going on, there certainly was a great enthusiasm at the message received from President Donald Trump. And when they want to celebrate his victory, this is not being allowed.
The method that the Awami League is using is that they are going to the International Criminal Court. They've already filed one petition there, and they are planning to file 15,000 such petitions. So how effective can a case be made, at the International Criminal Court against the ouster of a sitting government? What do you think?
It's a very difficult situation. Actually, on the other hand, even the interim government wants to file for genocide, and they've filed some thousands of murder cases against Sheikh
But that's within their own courts, right?
This is their courts, but some of them are going to the ICC also. So there are, from both sides is happening. So, I think that this is not going to stand either way, because, you can't just go to the ICC like that. You need a lot of detailed preparation, you need to give a lot of documentation, but certainly both sides are collecting the documentation and being submitted. I think, in my view, what is needed in Bangladesh is for the interim government to really act as an interim government, not to delay the holding of elections, but to go ahead and do it. On the other hand, the Jamaat-e-Islami, which is the real force behind Professor Muhammad Yunus. Mr. Muhammad Yunus is the chief advisor, but the real force is the Jamaat-e-Islami, the Hizb ut-Tahrir. In fact, Mahfouz Alam, who's today being sworn in as an advisor, is said to be a member of the Hizb ut-Tahrir. And these are Islamist organizations, and in fact, which are banned in many countries. Hizb ut-Tahrir was banned in Bangladesh as well. Even Jamaat-e-Islami had cases against it in the court, and the Awami League government also had banned it. Now, these governments, the Islamist groups are talking about long-term constitutional reforms, electoral reforms, and so on. But these reforms can't be done by an interim government. There has to be elections. An election has to be held. Whoever wins the elections can then certainly come in and do whatever reforms they would like, whatever is in their manifesto. So I think that normalcy can come to Bangladesh if they allow elections to be held. And if the army's role is restricted. Now, if the army is going to take part in events like, attacks on the Hindu community, attacks on the Buddhist community, then, the international community will start saying, why should they be taking part in peacekeeping operations? All these questions will come in if the army is going to do that. So the army should be, back in the barracks, and the army, the normal civilian administration should be there, and elections should be held. Joint elections, of course, the army does come out in support of civilian power. But I think the quicker that arrangements are made for early elections, the better it will be for normalcy in Bangladesh, because people there are expecting elections to be held.
Absolutely.
And they're not expecting all kinds of changes, like the Jamaat-e-Islami is talking for complete constitutional reforms, and so they're talking about electoral reform, they're talking about economic reform, they're talking about financial reform. Now, certainly, perhaps every country needs its own share of reforms, whatever the people are in favor of, but it has to be after elections are held and an elected body comes to power.
Right, we leave it there. Thank you very much, Ambassador Veena Sikri. Thank you for your insights into the situation in Bangladesh.